Okay, I was just coming from the Smoketown Plaza shopping center here at Woodbridge, Virginia. I just bought 6 items from the Second Avenue Super Drift Store, which is this large drift store here in Smoketown Plaza that sells all sorts of things, at discounted prices or smaller prices or whatever. Things from furniture, what else? Clothing, what else? Household items. And get this, they also sell media there, like books and movies there. And I bring this up because I feel it's important to have a collection of books and movies that really gets you in, intellectually speaking. It really expands your mind on reading all sorts of different topics or watching all sorts of different films. And the 6 different items that I got were 3 Blu Rays and 2 books. The Blu Rays that I got were Oblivion 2013, which is a science fiction movie with Tom Cruise and Morgan Freeman. A 1999 movie called Anaconda. Remember that movie with Ice Cube and who else? A bunch of other actors that were in there. It's on the cover. The actors' names are there. And what else? Oh, the 1997 volcano movie Dante's Peak with Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton. The James Bond actor and the actress from Terminator. She plays Sarah Connor. And what's cool about this, and the books were Jurassic Park, the Michael Crichton original novel, but the 25th anniversary edition. The Canterbury Tales, which is this medieval style poetic piece of literature by, what's the guy's name? I forgot. Jeffrey Chower, I think that's the author's name. And the last book was Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond, which is a history book. So 3 different movies, 3 different books, 6 items in total, all very different genres, all very different styles of storytelling, where one is about history, one is about poetic medieval history, what else? And then the other one is a science fiction thriller, and then 3 science fiction films of various different genres, because one is a disaster movie, one is a post-apocalyptic dystopia, the other one is a creature feature with a giant snake in it. What's cool about this is that it allows for a ton of variation no matter what genre you're in, because within a single genre you find a lot of different stories and styles and what else? Literary themes to find there. And this helps to keep your mind active in engaging with whatever subject matter you're in. But that doesn't mean you have to read everything or you have to watch everything. It's best to be selective with what you engage with, because there's only so much time, right? There's only so much money, so much space, so much energy that you have until you exhaust yourself into trying to watch everything, which is why I don't try to get everything from there. I've watched some thrift store videos recently where people do like a thrift haul and they buy like tons of items, but they spend like hundreds of dollars sometimes or dozens of dollars on items, and some of that they're probably never going to use. They're probably never going to really use it, and I've made that mistake too. With some movies I bought some movies from thrift stores that I honestly didn't feel like getting, because I saw them as unnecessary to my value collection in terms of the genres that appeal me, or in terms of the amount of space I have in my bedroom for me to have all that stuff anyways, and I am running out of space, so I'm being very considerate with the amount of space that's in there. And the thing is that when you don't have a lot of room, you tend to be very careful with the collection that you're trying to sort out or sort in, which is why every now and then I've gone to the thrift stores that I've been to, like Goodwill or Savers, which is up here at the Potomac Mills Plaza, next to the mall that's over here, or Second Avenue, even though there's no donation there. But whatever item I bought from those thrift stores, I returned them because I see now that I don't need to get all of them. Only get the items that you absolutely need or that are essential. There's even a book about it by Greg McGowan, a productivity book that explores the concept of essentialism, where you only do what you really need to do, with what's practical, with what's useful, with what's essential. That's what essentialism is. Don't mistake that for the loaded term essentialism, which is about things carrying fixed essences or fixed natures, which is something that is more loaded. and more controversial, especially when you get to philosophy, or when you get to the more psychological aspects of essentialism, which is claiming that certain groups or certain people are the way they are, and that's not how it works. So essentialism, in productivity terms, as the author Greg McKeown put it, is that it's about owning what you need. You know, being very minimal with it, being very productive with what little you have. But I would argue that you can still own a lot, but still be very essential with your needs. Because if you're specific about what you really want, for me, for example, I only want books and movies and some TV shows on physical media, whether it's Blu Rays or DVDs, whether it's older releases or newer releases. I'm very essential, right? I focus a lot on what I need. I don't need to buy every Blu-ray release. I don't need to buy every movie, but I typically get the ones that I want. So that way it fits with my preferences, fits with my value system, and it fits with the genre taste that I have. Because I have tons of science fiction, I have tons of action movies, tons of thrillers, tons of dramas, what else? I have a lot of films that really appeal to me. And the 3 films that I got, which were Oblivion, Anaconda, and Dante's Peak, each of them are interesting because they're all within the science fiction genre, obviously, but they all fit in different aspects of science fiction, whether it is disaster with Dante's Peak, Volcano came out the same year. 1997 really was the year of 2 volcano movies, and then the following year, 1998, we had 2 asteroid movies, which were Deep Impact and Armageddon. I'm more of a Deep Impact fan, by the way. Yeah, the 90s really were the decade of disaster films, and I think it helped that it was before 9/11. It was before a real disaster struck America that Hollywood became very obsessed with end-of-the-world imagery and end-of-the-world spectacle, that it really helped that it was an escapist venture for people to imagine catastrophic events to happen. And in our real world scenarios, with a lot of the things that have been going on in the last 25 years, especially after 9/11, we're more sensitive to it, but we're also used to it because cinema really was a way to desensitize our perception of disaster, of real disasters, whether it's natural disasters, whether it's end-of-the-world scenarios, whether it's pandemics, which, we had one recently, COVID, terrorism, or anything that could make the world fall apart. And we're seeing it now in the sense that we don't need that stuff, but that stuff could still happen. We can survive those external events, but we struggle to survive internal collapse, which is why American society right now politically is very fragmented. But I want to get to the point, which is that owning a bunch of media, and preserving things like Blu-rays or DVDs is essential to forming a collection of preserving, art like that, or media like that, or a collection of things that have helped humans to preserve knowledge and stories throughout history, throughout our time that we're here. And in times like this, where it's very uncertain, people do turn to art, people do turn to media as a way to cope. Whether it's confrontational cinema that directly confronts the realities of how things are in the world, and I've talked about this in my previous video with coming-of-age stories not being as universal as people think it is, or with even escapist films. People just want to have a great time watching a movie, but they also want to analyze the movie in terms of what it means. It's not just escapism, it has deeper themes in there. Star Wars is a great example of that. Star Wars by George Lucas sold itself as escapist science fantasy, science space opera, whatever. But underneath the lightsabers and the imagery of the stormtroopers and Darth Vader and all that stuff, Star Wars has deeper themes about, political conflict, about spirituality, about what else? The Chosen One, right? Star Wars has a lot of things in there that shows it is very thematically rich, despite the science fantasy, sci-fi, space opera genre. The Matrix is another one too. The Matrix is very similar to Star Wars, where on the surface it's action, sci-fi, neo-noir, apocalyptic, dystopia. What else? Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss, Hugo Weaving, Lawrence Fishburne, these huge name actors from the 90s and even today that shine in their respective roles. But when you look deeper on the surface, you realize that, oh, wait a minute, The Matrix is about, it's like Star Wars, it's about a lot of things. It's about the Chosen One, it's about prophetic visions, it's about awakening from a false reality. It touches on so many different philosophical and spiritual themes that has made The Matrix still relevant today, especially with technology and with how social media and AI are shaping reality. But the point I'm trying to make overall about this is that it is a great thing to have a big collection of a lot of films and books and other pieces of media that helps you be a part of something much bigger than yourself, helps you be a part of mankind's ongoing relationship with the world in ways that has helped to process, those big ideas, big topics, big picture thinking, and compressing it into books and films. And I have an example of it right here with Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond. I was just talking about this one. This is a history book that is about how much of history, at least Western history, was shaped by the struggle between different political entities, different religions, different empires, right? It says right here, hold up. There we go, I'm just moving the cart right there. It says right here that this is a brilliantly written, passionate, and whirlwind tour through 13,000 years of history on all continents. All continents, my bad. I said Western world. Whoa, this actually covers all continents. I haven't read the book though, so I want to read it. A short history of everything about everybody. The origins of empires, religion, writing, crops, and guns are all here. And by at last providing a convincing explanation for the differing developments of human societies on different continents, the book demolishes the grounds for racist theories of history. It accounts of how the modern world was formed, is full of lessons for our own future. After reading the first 2 pages, you won't be able to put it down. So that's a description of the book right here by that describes basically how a book like this is able to compress thousands of years of history of many different world empires, societies, or cultural systems that have contributed to this ongoing story that we call history that humans are participating in, and we are the latest edition of that. We're not isolated from history. History is not something that happened in the past. History is something that is still happening right now as we speak, and I'm a part of that too, even though I'm not a historical figure. But in the centuries, millennia from now, I might be considered one. You never know. We might all be considered historical figures because we've contributed to history. And even centuries ago, there might be people, or even as recent as decades ago, there might be people, events, or places that are not officially cataloged in history, but that's what we're actively trying to do. And it's my interpretation that media, especially modern media like movies and books even, are that latest edition of history. Now, of course, fiction is still fiction, right? Fiction is fiction is about events that didn't happen, but they are a part of history. They reflect what a specific time period felt by the people that lived through it, by the people that experienced it, by the people that wrote the screenplay, that wrote the script. And that's what I'm drawn to it. And it doesn't have to be history in terms of genre, history in terms of historical, cultural context. A movie from the 90s is very much shaped by the societal values and the societal norms of the 90s, right? A movie made in the 2010s, or even in this decade, the 2020s, shaped by the value systems, historical and cultural and political background of that time period. And it shows that it's an ongoing thing that encourages people to participate. And through that participation, we're drawn to art, we're drawn to stories, and we're drawn to collecting media work, so that way we know that there was a moment in history when people were like this. Through the films that we watch, we know that there was a time like this, and this encourages us to create our own stories. We don't have to just live by another story, but we use that story as a way to reflect on where we are going, how we understand the world and what is our place in all of this, and to create our own stories so that way we can participate with this too. I'd like to get more into this topic, but I'm heading out in just a moment. Hold up. So yeah, as I was just saying, I just came back from this other thrift store, Goodwill, which is right in front of me as I'm speaking. And yes, I did get another collection for around $10, which wasn't too bad. I'll get to those items in just a moment. But as I was saying, it is vital that we as media archivists or people that are passionate about collecting books and films to preserve this stuff, because we are carrying with us fragments of human history from people across different backgrounds, from philosophers or thinkers or political leaders or scientists or literary writers or filmmakers, people that have made incredible stuff by taking a look at the historical events going on around them and trying to reflect on what it meant. What did it mean to live in that time period and what it felt to them? And we're preserving that because it inspires the rest of us to do our own thing, to create our own piece of storytelling. Because it's one thing to consume stories, right? You can consume as many stories as you want, but it'll delude you of experiencing your own story. The balance is to watch other stories, read other stories, and also tell your own story while you're occasionally drawing influence. And that's the thing, is that it helps you to be aware of the world on so many levels, not just on what's going on now, but also on the things that have led up to this moment. That's why I feel history on so many levels works, because history isn't just about what happened back then, it's also about what's going on now and how now is influenced by both the past and the future, which is why collecting various media and various forms of literature is necessary, especially in an era of streaming where everything is digital. Like a lot of movies and shows are on Netflix or Max or Hulu or Amazon, and we don't have money always to keep paying for that, especially when these streaming platforms are collecting our data. They are sorting out what goes in, what goes out, and these algorithms are dictating what people watch instead of you selecting it. That's the thing that's scary about streaming, that many people don't realize, or realize until later, is that algorithms are curating a collection. They are, keeping track of what you watch, and then they create this predictive power, this, feedback loop of where you watch that show. You binge watch a show on Netflix for a whole week, and then Netflix is going to recommend you a show, but you never know if that's going to be of the same quality, or if you never know if that's going to be something that may or may not align with your interests. Yeah, that's the thing too, is that it's kind of scary. You never know how that could play out. So it's necessary that we stay vigilant on that by going back to physical media. And I don't think physical media is going to go away as far as we can tell. Even though everything is going to turn digital at some point, that doesn't mean we're only going to live in the digital sphere. We do need to live in the physical world. We do need to have physical things in us, even as things become more digitized. But that physical media that we're collecting reminds us that, we're not going to be on a screen all day. We're not going to be binge watching Netflix or Hulu or Max all day. I know it's called HBO Max, but I shorten it to Max. And that we need to preserve the works of writers and filmmakers who've made, these stories before the digital age and during the digital age. So it's great that we do that. I'd like to go into more detail explaining this topic, because I'm really interested. Hold up, is this the way? Yeah, this is the way. I'm very interested in this topic of exploring, that relationship between analog media and digital media, and where the two can kind of go into the middle, and how books also get thrown in this too, because we have physical books and then we have audiobooks, and then we have people that only listen to audiobooks, people that have tons of books but never actually read them. That happened to me too, even though I always make sure that the books I get are of my interest. That shows, it is about curation at the end of the day. Don't just collect just for the sake of collecting. Don't just go on drift hauls just because the internet is saying, hey, look, I got these items for X price. Actually sort out what you want and then filter out the rest, which is why I've circled around this theme, that it is important that we preserve physical media. It is important that we get books and movies, and I have some of them right here. And I'm going to list them in just a moment. These are the ones I got from Goodwill, because I already listed the ones I got from 2nd Avenue. That car just went by. It was really loud. But yeah, it's important that we do so that way we can make sure that not everything becomes wholly digital. We don't just watch everything on streaming. We don't just listen to audiobooks. We actually engage with the physical world around us too. We got to live in that balance. And I'm part of a generation, especially with the earlier Gen Z generation, that did grow up in that middle transition between analog and digital. And, we sort of are in the middle. Gen Alpha lean more towards digital sphere. Millennials lean towards analog initially, but then they adapted to the digital world. So millennials started with analog, but then they went mostly digital. Gen Z fluctuates between analog and digital, and then older generations tend to be somewhat analog, but they've adapted to the digital world. So see, everybody has adapted to the digital world. It's just that the analog world is the world that we almost remember. We almost remember that, yes, there was a time before the internet. There was a time before social media. There was a time before smartphones. And we were part of that generation that grew up in the 10 years before all of that stuff. And then by the 2010s, everything, started to become more digitized, for better and for worse. I'm fascinated to explore that topic, and that's why I'm very passionate about collecting digital, let me rephrase that. I'm very passionate about collecting physical media from books and movies. And I watch streaming or engage with the streaming platforms when necessary, because I still believe streaming matters. I still believe that having a streaming platform, having access to Netflix or Max or Amazon or Hulu, that still matters, because that has a lot more space for a lot of media there for it to be sorted in there by the algorithms that have a lot of digital data, have a lot of informational processing power to catalog various movies and shows that you don't have access to. So there is an advantage to streaming too. The disadvantage is that titles come and go. You don't actually own the title. You have access to the streaming platform, but you don't actually own the titles there. But when you own a movie, like this movie, Aquaman, or this movie that I just got, like Gravity, or even this movie right here, let me see. Yeah, I can't show it because I'm driving right now, but I'll quickly pull it up. This movie, 2012, that shows that you remember that physical media like DVDs and Blu Rays existed, and that they are still around, and they're not going to disappear for as long as we preserve them. Whereas with streaming, those titles that are on streaming, whatever and wherever you watch them, yeah, they're going to be gone the next month. So that's the thing to be careful for. Again, topic that I love to talk more about in detail, and I'll probably make videos done in much better quality than this, but this is an unscripted rant that goes into my interest on why I believe physical media, from books to movies and even shows, matter. Why streaming isn't bad. It's just that streaming, is dictated by algorithms and by data collecting software that does track what we watch and recommends content that isn't always the best, you know what I mean? And it is expensive. Every month you have to pay for Netflix or Max or Hulu. And if you own multiples just to keep up with shows or movies you don't have physical access to, yeah, that's a hurdle. That's a lot. But when you have a physical collection of films that are on Blu Rays, DVDs, limited editions, certain box sets, you have the collection physically, and it's there. It's going to be there. You know what I mean? And the other thing too is special features. DVDs and Blu Rays come with special features that go into the behind the scenes, into the making of the movie, into actor interviews, into production notes and things like that. That's the thing I really like about physical media, is that they have those things, whereas with streaming they don't really have that. Streaming, you just have the movie, limited information, 1 to 2 sentence synopsis, and that's it. And the picture quality differs a lot in streaming and media too. Streaming and physical media. So there is a difference there. And yes, this is a topic that is widely discussed in the media world, where, should we have physical films on Blu Rays or DVDs, or should we only have streaming, or should we have a mix of the two? That's something that I am interested in, because I'm the person that occupies that middle space, given my generational background and my life experiences, where I grew up first with Blu Rays and DVDs, and then I got into streaming in my early 20s. And I knew how to use it early, even though I'm not fully in touch with everything that goes on with the streaming world, right? I don't know everything that goes on with how Netflix is run, even though I know the controversies of Netflix. I know that there are shows on streaming services that are controversial, that people have complained about, and certain titles that have been taken away, and people are upset by that. So I know about the things going on. It's just that I'm not extremely well literate in the algorithmic systems or things like that, and that's what I want to do. Same with the physical media stuff, where I'm not the most literate in terms of how DVDs are made, how they're distributed, how they're processed, but it makes me want to learn more. And it also makes me want to credit the people that do spend time and money and resources to create the covers that we see here. And they do a great job of it. We have to give those people credit, because it's very well done. It's very interesting how that works. Right here. Can we go? Yeah, we can go. So yeah, that's a topic that I wanted to share today that really fascinates me, and that's something that I plan to cover much more in detail in this channel. This is Media Mystic, by the way. Yeah, the channel name. Something I want to cover much more in detail, why I am passionate about film, about media, and about the different genres and the different systemic processes that comes into making the film, and covering literary works also. I don't know if this is going to be like a book channel. I could go into books with this channel because I do have some books here. I didn't share them with you, but the books I have are Poetics by Aristotle. Aristotle, of course, was one of the Greek philosophers that influenced the foundation of Western philosophy. It's a work called Poetics. And then the other book is a book titled what's it called? Prophetic Song by Paul Lentz, which is an Irish dystopian piece of literary fiction, which is really cool. And it's a newer release. It's a newer publication from 2023. So yeah, and that's the thing, is that I'm into genres that I'm very interested in, even if they come from different cultural or societal backgrounds. And I'm looking into ones that are of my own. I won't tell you where I come from culturally, because that's the mystery. That's up to you to decide. Maybe I'll cut that part. Maybe. Okay, so yeah, I'm interested in checking out works from different backgrounds, mine included, and that's why I feel like sharing it with you guys. So let me know in the comments down below, what do you think of this? What do you think of the importance of preserving physical media? And what do you think is the relationship between streaming and physical media? Do you think everything will become digitized? Do you think physical media will survive in the next century or so? And what are some of the titles that you tend to pick at thrift stores? And what are some experiences that you've had at thrift stores when you've gone thrift hauling or collecting? I'm curious to know. This was Media Mystic. Hopefully you had the patience of watching this entire video. I know I went on a rant. I know I split this video into 2 parts because I went out to the store and then I recorded this video again. But don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and stay notified by turning on the bell notification button. And we're gonna see you later. This was Media Mystic, ending the video.